Welcome back, mathematicians. So for the first video, you learned how to find for the percent of a number. That means that you were given the part and you were given the whole. For this section, we're going to be learning how to find the part. And what you'll notice is for the most part, we use the same types of models. So let's go ahead and get started. For this part, we know percents describe a part to whole relationship in terms of 100. So we know that if we have an entire amount, that equals our 100% of it. And a part of it, a piece of it, will be that part that we look for with the percent. Now in this unit, we're going to continue to use our two models. We're going to be using the percent bar model, and we're going to continue using that proportion. So make sure that you have both of these down, please. With example number 1, we're going to be finding the part with a percent bar model. So let's see how we can use that bar model first. So the first question says, what is 25% of 80? And we're going to begin by drawing your model. So here's the model. Make sure you have it down. The top represents our whole, and the bottom rectangle will represent our pieces. Now for our whole, we need to be able to break it down into 25%. And this is when our knowledge of percents comes in handy. Because we know that 25% is equal to 1/4 split. We are going to split the bottom portion into 4 equal parts. And now we can fill in the numbers that we do know. So we know 25% and we know 80. And so 80 was the entire amount, which is why it was our whole. And then we know that 25% is 4 different sections for 100. That's why we have 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. Those were all increasing by 25. Now we're going to be dividing 80 by 4 so that we can figure out how much each one of these sections will equal. So let's go ahead and do that part. I have 80 divided by 4. 8 can be divided by 4 2 times, because I know that 2 times 4 equals 8. And we still have the 0, so let's bring it down. 0 divided by 4 will give me 0, and that leaves me with nothing. What that means is that every single one of these pieces is going to be worth 20. So I know this part is 20, this part is 20, this part is 20, this part is also 20. So for the question specifically, it's only asking about 25%. And I know that 25% of it is this section over here, which we already said was worth 20. So 20 is 25% of 80. Moving on to our second one, finding the part with a percent bar model. Again, we need to create equal sections, so we need to split the bottom bar. Now, what is 40% of 60? 40% cannot be split equally between the 100%. So a benchmark model that we can use, a benchmark percent that we can use is 10%. So I'm going to be breaking up this section into 10%. 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way until I get to 100%. So I'm going to be taking my total amount, which was 60, and I'm going to be dividing it by 10 so that I can figure out how much each one of these little pieces is worth. So let's go ahead and get that started. If I have 60 and I divide it into 10 pieces so I can figure out how much each one of these will be worth, I know that 60 can be divided by 10 6 times, which means that every single piece inside here is 60. Or is 6, because 60 divided by 10 is 6. And we want to know about 40%. And I know that 40% is over here. And I know that 40% is over here. So I would need to figure out how much all these 6 would be worth together. So if I have 6, 6, 6, 6, how much will that equal? I can do 6 times 4, which gives us 24. So 40% of 60 is worth 24. Again, we're finding the part, but this time let's use a proportion. For these last two, what we used were bar models. If you like using bar models, awesome, keep doing that. but I'm also going to teach you how to do it with the proportion. In case you like this way a little better, you can use this way. So again, what is 30% of 90? 90 is going to be our whole. So we're going to begin by setting up a percent proportion. I know that I have my part and my whole, the percent out of 100. We're going to fill in the numbers we know, just like we did for the other video. So I know 30%. Since that is a percent, I'm going to put it on top of 100. And I know that 90 is your whole amount, which is why it's our denominator. And again, we're going to continue the steps we've already known. We're going to simplify this ratio. So both 30 and 100 can be divided by 10, which is how I got 3 out of 10. That can be divided by 10, and that can be divided by 10. And now we're going to use a scale factor to solve. So now I'm looking for the part over here, which now means I need to go from 10 to 90, so that I can go from 3 to my missing piece. And I can do that by multiplying by 9. I know 10 times 9 gives me 90, so to find this answer I need to do 3 times 9. And 3 times 9 gives you what? If you got 27, you are absolutely correct. 27 is 30% of 90. So let's continue using this. We're going to do both methods. So let's find the part. What is 20% of 25? So right now, let's start off with a bar model. I'm going to give you a couple seconds. I want you to show me how you would fill in this bar model. Okay, so the top tells us our whole, and that whole was 25. And I know that the bottom is our percent. I know we have 0% and 100%. You could have split it up a couple of ways. I know 20% can go into 100 5 times because I have 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, and then that gives me 100%. So let me put those percents. Okay. Now, if I know that it can go into 105 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that means I can divide 25 by 5 to figure out how much each one of these pieces is worth. So let's go ahead and do that. 25 divided by 5. How many times can that go in? That can go in 5 times. So that means that each one of these little sections is worth 5. Now the question specifically was asking us about 20%. So right here is my 20%, which means that it is worth 5. So I know 5 is 20% of 25. Now let's go ahead and use the proportion to see how we would have done that way. I know 20% is out of 100, so I'm going to put that right above it. I know this up here is my part, so I'm going to leave that blank. That's what I'm looking for. And I know that 25 is going to be my whole amount that I have. So we've put that in there. The second step is to simplify our proportion. I know that these two can be divided by 2, which, well, not by 2, it can be divided by 10. So 20 divided by 10 gives me 2, and 100 divided by 10 gives me 10. So I'm left with 2/10, which I can actually simplify that some more. 2 and 5 can both be divided, 2 and 10 can both be divided by 2. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1, and 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. So now I can do the third step of using a scale factor. 5 times 5 can give me 25. So I'm going to use that to multiply with 1. 1 times 5 can give me 5. So both of them give me the exact same answer. Alrighty, so in the box, in a box of 150 thumbtacks, 20% are yellow and 40% are blue, and the rest of them are red. So the first question that we have is, how many yellow thumbtacks are in the box? Now right here it tells me 20% of them are yellow and 150 of them are my total amount. So right now I'm going to give you some time. You can either use a bar graph, a bar model, or a proportion. You decide. So I'm going to do a bar model first. And I know a bar model is 2 rectangles. Now the total amount that I have, my whole will be 150. And I am looking for yellow, which is 20%. So I'm actually going to break that up like I did for the other problem. I have 0% and 100. And I can count by 25 times to get to 100. So that is 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, and 100%. I apologize because they don't look equal. They should be equal, but I'm not a perfect artist, so I apologize for that. And I'm going to only put that 20% because that's the section that I care about. So 100 can be divided by 20 5 times. So that's what I'm going to do with this 150. I'm going to divide it by 5 so I can figure out how much each one of these little sections is worth. So 1 cannot be divided by 5. 15 can be divided by 5 3 times. I'm left with a 0, so I still need to divide by that. 0 divided by 5 will give me 0. So that means that each one of these is worth 30. So this section is 30, this section is 30, 30, 30, and 30. So that means that 20% of it should have been 30. Now let's see what that looks like with a proportion. So on my proportion, I do not know my part. So I'm just going to put the variable x so that I can hold the spot there for that number. For my denominator, I know the total amount, my whole, is 150. And I know that I'm looking for 20% out of 100%. Okay, so again, a strategy that I have first is to simplify. So if I'm looking at 20 over 10, or 20 over 100%, I can divide both of those by 10. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to cross out that extra 0. And I'm actually going to stop there. Yes, 2 over 10 can be simplified some more, but I can use this information already to figure out how I went from 10 to 150, because I'm trying to go from 2 to this missing piece over here. So what scale factor can I use to go from 10 to 150? If you said times 15, you are completely correct. 10 times 15 gives me 150. So I'm going to do that same thing over here. I'm going to do 2 times 15. Go ahead and multiply that. Let's see what that gives you. And that answer should have been 30%. So both of these ways should give you the same exact answer of 30, either when you use a bar model or when you use a proportion.